I'm thrilled to welcome our featured artist duo, co-founders of Game 7 Media, Kyle McCutcheon and Chris Chorus. Kyle started his career in LA working at Epix before transitioning to New Wave Entertainment. Kyle then left LA to pursue an opportunity with HBO Canada, where he worked with some of the top writers and producers in the country. He also spent some time at Chorus Entertainment, where he was instrumental in launching Kin Community Canada, a social talent network. Kyle recently became the head of the CBC Creator Network, a project which discovers and amplifies top Canadian digital creators. Chris is originally from Toronto and now lives in sunny Venice Beach, California. He's a partner at Rep1, where he manages over 250 athletes. Before joining Rep1, Chris was the general counsel at Prime Athletes, a startup athlete representation firm. Chris received his Juris Doctor from Chapman University Dale E. Fowler School of Law with an emphasis on entertainment and sports law. Kyle and Chris joined forces to create Game 7 Media, a production company that focuses on sports and entertainment content. They've just released Anyone's Game, a documentary series that is available to stream now on CBC Gem. Let's hit the tape.
You know, everybody I talked to back then said that the best players will always leave. Can't compete with the States.
The world of high school basketball is cutthroat. There's millions of dollars on the line. Orangeville Prep is one of the best programs in the world. We don't get the recognition we deserve. We have to do double the work.
Do not leave your brother behind! I got y'all for the rest of my fucking life as I breathe.
Canadians walking to the gym. It's like, what are you doing here? We got a target on our backs.
I'm trying to ball. Yeah, you can get fit. I'm at the top when you're at the top.
Don't foul! Not taking a tech up 50 in this bullshit game for you. I'll just sub you out with 6 minutes left in every game, and you could sit there and be a get changed. See you tomorrow. For MA, this is go time. Our most recruited athlete on the roster with the highest upside. This is his show this year.
At a certain point, you can't really trust everyone. Everyone has their own agenda.
Jeff Nagandu, another NBA potential guy.
Cross the border and enter Canada as a refugee.
I mean, since I've been playing basketball, for sure, this one is the worst in my life. I started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, it's over.
Shamar is the biggest competitor in all of Canada. You going in the back alley at night, I want that kid with me.
Dyson from Philly, huge amount of value to our 4 spot.
My dad wasn't around. My mom taught me how to be a man.
Violent marriage, it was not good. I've been a single mom since he was 6 months old.
Pops, if you ever see this, you. We're better off without you.
For us to win Grind Session would be huge.
That's our main objective.
Grind Session is putting the best players in the world against the other best players.
Always have something to prove. Being the only Canadian team in that, yeah, we have something to prove.
We're gonna show and prove this year we are the best in the world.
Your career, and particularly in basketball, like it's a 15-round heavyweight fight. Now, you may win, but real life isn't that way, and you're gonna get knocked down.
But we know through pain comes joy, Lord. I pray to become great fathers, better brothers, better sons.
Together on 3, barely on 6. 1, 2, 3. Together. 4, 5, 6. Bam.
I'd like to welcome our guests for this segment, Kyle and Chris. How are you both doing today? Let's go in that order, Kyle and then Chris.
I'm doing great. The sun is shining in Toronto. It's getting warmer out, so yeah, I'm always happy when that's happening, when the sun's out. Sorry.
All right, and I know the sun's out where you are.
Yeah, no, it's generally pretty nice down here, although I love the city of Toronto. It's where I'm from. It is my home. I'm happy to be a current resident of Venice Beach, California, and a lot of good things happening down here, generally starting with the weather.
All right, all right. Well, let's start off a bit about the origin story, how y'all got together, how you made your partnership, how did you meet, and when did you decide to start a business together?
Yeah, so Kyle and I crossed paths a lot in our lives without ever really knowing that we had actually crossed those paths. We played hockey in similar circles growing up. We're both from Toronto. And we even played against each other in college in the United States for, I think it was either 2 or 3 years. Had no idea of each other's existence, which probably speaks to both of our effectiveness as a hockey player. And then I was living in Los Angeles. Kyle had previously been in Los Angeles. We had some mutual friends. We got introduced at a dinner, really hit it off, and stayed in touch. And as our careers were both, I think, probably blossoming at that point, I had this idea to integrate what I was doing with athletes and my passion for visual storytelling. We just had this real interesting synergy that we started to explore, particularly with telling shorter form athlete-backed stories that were digital in nature. And we started to build a little bit of a portfolio together as co-producers.
Nice. Now, Kyle, can you remember who won that hockey match?
One of the years we were national champions of all of the U.S. So, I mean, you can infer from that. And I love to bring that up. So I'm really happy that you brought that part up.
Yeah, we were terrible. Yeah, so that's a no-brainer.
I'm sure they got it was back and forth, but I think to echo what Chris was saying. I mean, this really started off. Obviously we had this idea, but I was working I originally was, and then I moved back to Toronto to work at HBO Canada and work in kind of TV and film development there. So this really, I think most artists or creatives or entrepreneurs start off was a side hustle for us. We knew this is eventually where we wanted to get to, was having our own company in Game 7 Media. But the finances weren't there off at the beginning. And so this was a grind for us, after hours, on weekends, just, a lot of time to get the momentum going and, taking a first step. And I think digital for us was a huge opportunity to, there was no barriers to kind of entry to do that. And we had some successes there. And, then we caught a couple breaks with some of the videos we made that went a little viral. And then TSN actually approached us with an opportunity for a longer form piece of content, which was a 1-hour doc. And, then we piggybacked back off of that and got this series, Anyone's Game, with CBC. And so it was just momentum to keep growing into something bigger, which resulted in me, personally going full time on Game 7. And then Chris dabbling in the sports agency that he runs and Game 7. And I think the reason, we look back at, the reason we didn't quit our jobs and just jump head first. I mean, I think sometimes as an artist, you have to do that. But also the reason we kind of didn't do it cold turkey is that both jobs or both experiences, allowed us to grow, to learn about the business, see other people make mistakes, have successes, and build our connections essentially.
I love the section of Anyone's Game where the coach is sort of giving this strong, impassioned, directed, a little pointed kind of speech to one of the players. And then at the end of the speech, he picks up this small baby and walks out of the locker room. I love it. What are some of the parallels you've seen between artists and athletes? And how do those qualities lend themselves to becoming a great entrepreneur?
Yeah, just to touch on what you said with Tony Mack, who's the coach, he's certainly emerged as one of, if not the star of the show for a number of reasons. Obviously, he's a big personality, but I just think for me, what's really resonated and come through on the screen is the passion he has for the players he's coaching and their lives and their growth as basketball players and as young men. And sometimes that passion ends up in a fiery situation like the one you just referenced, which certainly makes for good TV. But it really just speaks to who he is and the love he has for what he does. Last year we had that tragedy with Kobe passing away. That I certainly have taken that from him as someone who is always striving to know, that Mamba mentality, they call it. What's the next thing? Who's thinking this way? Why? Constantly striving to learn is a critical one. And then I think perhaps the most important characteristic, that any great artist, any great entrepreneur, any great athlete certainly possesses is conviction. To continue to push forward despite people telling you no. That conviction is always, always, always going to win out. You just have to stick with it.
I love that. What about you, Kyle? What are the intersections for you with art, athletics, and business, entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it starts with adaptability. I mean, I think if you look at an athlete's career, sometimes you're put in positions and sometimes you're asked to do different roles and you have to learn, or they figure out, how you're doing something and they come at you with a different defense or a different offense. I think with artists, it's quite similar. I don't think any artist trajectory, successful artist, has done the same thing for their whole career. And some of that is inspiration. Some of that is the market telling you how to do different things. And ultimately, I just think if you can hone in on that skill of adaptability, you can kind of take and handle any of those things that Chris has talked about that can be thrown at you as you're trying to launch your career and your business or your artistic venture.
Let's talk about some of those things that are thrown at you. Every business, every entrepreneur, every content creator goes through a number of obstacles. I'm sure both of you have faced some challenges throughout your journey. What has been the North Star to keep you motivated? Can you talk about some of those experiences?
Yeah. I think for me, it's always I've had this vision of where I want to go with this company. I think even before, kind of meeting Chris, and then obviously when we connected, the stars kind of aligned, but, the type of talent we wanted to work with, and the stories we wanted to tell. So I think, in any job that I've had, seminar I've been to, meetup that I've joined, you name it, if it wasn't leading me towards this goal, or I felt stagnant in that position, I shifted and I adapted, kind of going back to what I was saying before.
Bonus round. I got 3 questions for you. The first 2 can be short answers. The last one, maybe a little bit more thought out. First question, first instinct. The one athlete that you've met that you became starstruck by. We'll start with Chris.
I'm going to give you a bit of a curveball answer. None. Yeah, none. The one person that I've been starstruck with was I had the pleasure of working for Will Ferrell's company when I was in school, and I was working for Funny or Die. And I was such a huge Will Ferrell fan, and it was his birthday, and I ruined his birthday surprise by coming around the corner too soon as a young nothing intern, which was very, very bad news. But when I was in the room, I was standing there next to him, and I was in my 20s. I'd just moved down from Toronto, had no business being in Los Angeles, certainly not standing next to Will Ferrell during his birthday. And I was speechless. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I didn't know where to hold my hands. So that's my one starstruck moment for sure.
I would say most recently, when we were filming in the gym up in Orangeville for anyone's game, one of the U.S. college coaches for Georgetown happens to be Patrick Ewing, who's a legendary basketball player. And outside of, kind of being starstruck at, just what he accomplished in his career, he is just a massive man. to the point where he's watching practice sitting on this little chair. Well, it's actually a normal sized chair, but it looks little with him, and you can just see like the rivets just hanging on for dear life. So to actually see somebody that big that you knew was, that physically gifted was pretty cool.
What would you like our audience of emerging artists to think about later today? And if you could add a recommendation for a sports movie. And when we're answering the question, think about those who are especially just beginning their own entrepreneurial endeavors. We'll start with you, Chris, and then we'll close it off with Kyle.
Sure. I think maybe just wrapping up a lot of what I've said, which is, don't let anyone tell you that you can't, and really think about that. I really think about that. There's a lot of iterations that you might hear of what I just said, but really allow that to resonate with you. I certainly think that The Last Dance is going to be the cherry on top and maybe help guide you through some of the tougher situations, because that team, they were not taking no for an answer.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Thank you so much. Kyle, last words?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've kind of touched on it, I guess, but whatever it is you do, I think whether you're a dancer, choreographer, singer, musician, whatever it is, I think you need to think about marketing yourself or your art, as much as you're doing your craft. And what I mean by that is just that discoverability is everything when you're looking for sustainability within art. So if you're looking to, make a career out of it and a business out of it, you need to get yourself out there.
Favorite sports movie?
Oh, right. I forgot that. It's a little bit of an older one. I don't know how old everybody will be on looking at this, but it's a bit of a classic, Rudy. Which is about a small, undersized football player that was told no many times and kept fighting. So I think that's very relatable.
Thank you so much, Chris and Kyle, for the inspiration, for the passion, and for the work that you put out into this world. Please check out Anyone's Game on CBC Gem right now. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.